Good morning. Thank you for being here. Let me begin by saying that the ability of Americans and Iowans to voice their opinions is foundational, and I would argue is the very cornerstone of our great republic. In fact, the ability to speak freely was so important that our founders enshrined this right in the First Amendment of the Constitution. While some would argue that the political divides could not be greater in this moment of history, this is the time, more than ever, that we need to protect speech, not silence it. Unfortunately, what seems to be a coordinated effort, big tech companies are doing just that. They are using their unfettered power to restrict, modify, or even remove Americans' and Iowans' ability to have their voices heard. The reality is, these social media platforms have become the public square of the 21st century. Big tech is being shielded by an antiquated law known as Section 230 of the United States Code. This code provision provides liability immunity from civil action by American citizens, and sadly, it appears Congress is unwilling to provide the necessary protections to our First Amendment from this unprecedented overreach by big tech. It is for these reasons that moments ago, I, along with 29 of my Senate Republican colleagues, some standing behind me here today, filed Senate File 402. I'm also pleased to announce that a companion study bill has been introduced in the House by Chairman Steve Holt in the Judiciary Committee. Let me thank Chairman Holt and my fellow colleagues for their unwavering commitment to the preservation of freedom and rights of our citizens. Thank you. The legislation introduced will send a strong message that Iowans will no longer foot the bill for big tech censorship in our state. Under our proposal, big tech will be required to recognize the rights of our citizens. Failure to comply with the law will result in Iowans having a mechanism to have their complaint investigated and heard before a court of law. If a judge determines constitutionally protected speech has been censored, the big tech company will forfeit the rights to any and all tax breaks, exemptions, or any other benefits they receive in our state for 20 years. Again, big tech can respect the voice and opinions of Iowans, or we will eliminate their special tax breaks. My hope is that the feckless disregard of individual rights we see coming out of the California Silicon Valley will promptly end. Today, the General Assembly will begin the process to send a clear and concise message that Iowans won't be silenced. I'll go ahead and open it up for any questions you all may have.
Do you know how much, like, what is the dollar figure now, like for Facebook, Google, Microsoft, any of those big tech, maybe not so much Microsoft, but what is the state helping them? Do you have a dollar amount on that?
Well, Apple alone will receive over $200 million in local and state tax breaks. That's just Apple. Of course, you have Facebook in Altoona, who is paying no property tax, is receiving literally hundreds of millions of dollars in tax benefits. I would also further note that these big tech companies are some of our largest energy consumers, and yet they don't pay any tax on the energy consumption that they are utilizing. This bill will force them to start paying taxes if they choose. The option is always theirs. They are in the driver's seat when it comes to this issue. Again, they can choose to respect the freedom of thought and opinion, or they can forego their special tax breaks here in this state.
Have any of you personally been affected by this, your Twitter, Facebook?
Sure, yes. I can tell you just the other day, I tried boosting one of my posts, and Facebook will not allow that to occur. Again, that is censorship, and we're seeing all across the United States And outside of the United States, Poland yesterday introduced legislation that will fine Facebook for their censorship. So this is a worldwide effort, really, when it comes to censorship. And we have, let me also say this, we have states that are literally locking people down and have locked people down during COVID-19. How do they have their voices heard? It's these devices, it's the digital media platform, and yet you have these executives out of California deciding what's going to be seen and what's not going to be seen. I think that is particularly dangerous in our great republic.
Do you think this will get their attention?
I would hope that it does get their attention, but we're not trying to get their attention. We're trying to change their behavior so Iowans can have their voices heard. That's what we want. And if they choose not to, that's fine. You just aren't going to get special tax breaks in our state.
First Amendment protections usually apply against the government, but you did say that you think that the big tech companies are the equivalent of a public forum. Could you maybe discuss that a little bit?
Right.
I mean, how you connect them as I mean, obviously in a public forum, a private actor still can't stop you from speaking. So.
Right. So, yep, I think it's a fair question, and again, it goes back to what is the public square of the 21st century? You know, when our nation was founded, it was literally a physical public square where you could go and have your voice heard, and we could respect differing opinions. But today, it is social media platforms. And, you know, on the one hand, these large tech companies want all of the protections that are granted to them under Section 230 as simply a platform where there's an exchange of ideas and beliefs. But yet then they also want to use catchphrases like moderate and restrict. And really what they're talking about is they want to control a specific dialogue of speech.
This idea of the expanded public forum, does this go beyond tech companies? I mean, are there other implications to your ideas? A large mall that says you can't have a sign in the parking lot, and I mean, are we looking at other areas where companies restrict free speech?
This legislation specifically deals with big tech censorship. It deals with not only the platforms, but the marketplaces. We've seen Apple and Google and others remove certain apps from their stores, preventing people to being able to download. So this bill deals specifically with that issue. It is not going into the realm of other smaller business.
And who is going to be managing the bill for you?
I'm going to manage the bill myself.
So what committee are we looking at?
It is already referred to Commerce.
And so do you have a subcommittee scheduled yet?
A subcommittee has not been scheduled, but I would assume it will move fairly rapidly. I'm hoping we can get it out of subcommittee next week. Okay.